What if everything you thought you knew about being Hawaiian wasn't the whole story? Not just the chants, the myths, or the islands themselves, but your very blood. Because in the state of Hawaii, new genetic discoveries are challenging everything we assumed about ancestry. Yes, Polynesian roots run deep, but buried within the DNA of today's Hawaiians, teachers, surfers, kupuna, are threads that stretch far beyond the Pacific, ancient ties to Asia, unexpected connections to Africa, even surprising links to the Americas. It's not just heritage, it's a genetic roadmap, one shaped by voyaging, survival, and forgotten migrations. This isn't just a story about Hawaii. It's one about how science is peeling back the layers of identity, revealing the incredible diversity that's been there all along. In the video, we'll follow the genes, the history, and the people reshaping what it truly means to be Hawaiian. Hawaii's identity, more than myth and memory. For generations, Hawaii's identity has been anchored in the stories of its Polynesian ancestors, navigators who read the stars, warriors who protected their shores, and oral historians who passed down wisdom through chants and legends. These aren't myths, they're living truths. They've shaped how people across the island see themselves, their families, and their home. But identity isn't always sung. It isn't always inked into family trees or carved into monuments. Sometimes identity lives quietly, tucked into a person's DNA. In recent years, that DNA has begun telling about a journey that's both familiar and startling. Yes, Native Hawaiian bloodlines stretch proudly across the Pacific. But deeper analysis has revealed something more complex, unexpected genetic patterns, hinting at ancestry far beyond Polynesia, Southeast Asian threads, South American echoes, even faint signals from places thought far removed from island life. These revelations don't rewrite Hawaii's history. They enrich it. They ask residents to look not just backward at their heritage, but inward toward a biological past that is still unfolding. It's not about replacing cultural memory. It's about layering it with truths long buried and almost forgotten. Because for many in Hawaii, discovering that your genome carries the footprints of ancient migrations isn't just fascinating, it's deeply personal. It shifts the way people think about who they are and where they truly come from. As one geneticist put it, Hawaii isn't just the end of a voyage, it's a crossroads, a beginning, a living archive of human movement written into every cell, tracing the Polynesian journey through DNA. Before there was GPS, there were stars. Before jet engines and flight paths, there were hand-carved canoes cutting across an endless ocean. The first people to arrive on the islands, now known as Hawaii, were not simply settlers, they were voyagers. Scientists, astronomers, explorers in the purest form. And their journey stands among the greatest feats of human navigation ever recorded. Polynesian navigators traveled thousands of miles across the Pacific Ocean, using nothing but the natural world to guide them. They read wave patterns like maps. They studied the moon, the sun, and constellations passed down through generations. They felt their way across a liquid continent, charting a path from island to island, never truly lost. Today, thanks to advances in genetic science, researchers can trace that very journey, not through old carvings or artifacts, but through the DNA encoded in modern Native Hawaiians. It's a living archive of movement and memory. By analyzing mitochondrial DNA, which is passed down from mothers, and Y chromosome markers from fathers to sons, scientists have mapped an extraordinary route. It begins in Taiwan, travels through the islands of Melanesia, touches Fiji, Samoa, and Tahiti, and finally arrives in Hawaii around 1,000 to 1,200 years ago. Each stop leaves behind not just a cultural impression, but a genetic footprint. But these ancient voyagers didn't come empty-handed. They brought more than coconuts and taro. They carried entire worlds with them, language systems rich with metaphor, spiritual practices tied to land and sea, genealogies rooted in respect, and rituals that defined community. They brought back memories. They brought bloodlines that still course through the veins of Hawaiians today. This genetic breadcrumb trail doesn't replace the oral traditions, it reinforces them. It lends scientific weight to what has been spoken, sung, and believed for centuries. It connects isolated archipelagos with a web of shared origin, proving that Polynesian societies were never disconnected. They were in constant dialogue across oceans. And for many, discovering this connection in their own DNA is a moment that takes their breath away. It's not just science, it's spiritual. It validates what ancestors carried in their hearts, that they came from somewhere vast, guided by vision and courage, and they arrived carrying everything that mattered most. Because in those strands of DNA are not just biological codes, they are compass points. They are the soft echo of paddles against water, the firelight of ancient wayfinders, the evidence that no one arrived in Hawaii by accident. They came with purpose, with brilliance, with legacy. The unexpected, Asian, African, and European DNA in Hawaii. Ask most people what a typical Hawaiian looks like, and they'll likely imagine someone with features like sun-bronzed skin, dark hair, and deep ancestral ties to the Pacific. And while those images hold truth, they don't tell the whole version. Beneath the surface, scientists are uncovering a far more intricate genetic mosaic hidden in Hawaiian DNA. Recent statewide genetic testing has revealed surprising ancestral threads, connections to Japan, China, the Philippines, Portugal, Puerto Rico, and even Africa. These aren't minor footnotes in Hawaii's journey. They are core chapters. So how did this extraordinary blend come to be? The answer lies in waves of colonization, global trade routes, and large-scale labor migrations. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, the Hawaiian Islands became a hub of plantation agriculture, especially sugar cane and pineapple. To keep the fields running, laborers were brought in from across Asia and Europe. They arrived seeking opportunity, sometimes freedom, and they brought more than just hands for harvest. They brought culture, language, spiritual beliefs, and of course, bloodlines. Over time, these communities didn't just coexist, they intertwined, marriages formed, families grew. And in the quiet folds of everyday life, a new kind of heritage took shape, one that fused Polynesian roots with global histories. Today, the genetic landscape of Hawaii is unlike any other state in the US. It is complex, multi-layered, and deeply personal, and far from erasing Hawaiian identity, this richness deepens it. It proves that being Hawaiian has never been about purity. It has always been about connection. For some, discovering unexpected lineage in their DNA brings a swell of pride, confirmation of the diversity they sensed but couldn't explain. For others, it can stir questions about belonging and heritage. But for all, it serves as undeniable proof. Hawaii's people are not just descendants of voyagers. They are the children of resilience, of rebuilding, of culture woven together by history, survival, and human spirit. This isn't a story of confusion, it's one of becoming. And in Hawaii, becoming has always been beautiful and complex by design. If you're watching from Hawaii or have roots in the state, drop a comment and tell us something surprising your DNA revealed. We'd love to hear how your story connects to this one. Technology that talks to the past. Behind the groundbreaking discoveries in Hawaiian ancestry is a wave of powerful, evolving technology. Genome-wide association studies, GBAS, next-generation sequencing, NGS, and advanced AI models are giving scientists unprecedented access to the past, reading clues to ancient migrations embedded in the genetic code of living people. These aren't just heritage tests. They're sophisticated tools that create detailed maps of human movement, interconnection, and survival. In the context of Hawaii, this technology is doing something remarkable. Researchers are now able to isolate rare genetic markers that are uniquely Polynesian, sequences found almost nowhere else on Earth, and trace their journey across time and ocean. AI-powered simulations can model possible voyaging paths, factoring in ocean currents, wind patterns, and archaeological evidence. Even skeletal remains, when sourced ethically and handled with cultural care, are now helping bridge oral histories with genomic proof. What's even more transformative is how this technology is being localized. Mobile ancestry kits and community-based DNA tools are being developed specifically for Native Hawaiian use, giving individuals a chance to explore their roots without surrendering data to outside institutions. In doing so, it empowers discovery without sacrificing sovereignty. This fusion of cutting-edge science and indigenous values isn't just about uncovering the past, it's about reclaiming it. The tools may be digital, but the questions they answer are timeless. Who are we? Where did we come from? And how do we honor those who brought us here? For Hawaiians, each breakthrough in this scientific journey brings more than knowledge. It brings clarity, it brings pride, and most importantly, it brings control back into the hands of those whose history is finally being told on their terms. When science meets culture, the ethics of DNA in Hawaii. DNA can reveal powerful truths, but in the state of Hawaii, it can also reopen deep wounds, some still healing, some passed down through generations. For many Native Hawaiians, the rise of genetic testing isn't just a scientific milestone, it's a cultural crossroads. With each test comes a wave of questions. Who gets to study Hawaiian DNA? Who benefits from the findings? And perhaps most importantly, will this information be used to honor their history or to overwrite it? Some indigenous leaders fear that genetic results, especially when misunderstood or misused, could undermine Native identity, reducing cultural belonging to a percentage on a chart. Others voice concerns about exploitation, researchers from afar collecting blood and stories without fully grasping or respecting their sacred meaning. There's a long history of extraction, of taking from Hawaiian land, culture, and now potentially their genetic legacy. But amid these concerns, a new movement is taking shape. Local Hawaiian scientists, cultural practitioners, and community leaders are coming together to define what ethical science should look like on Hawaiian terms. They're creating culturally grounded research guidelines rooted in values like kuleana, meaning responsibility, pono, meaning righteousness, and aloha, aina, meaning love for the land and people. Their aim isn't to reject science, it's to reshape it into something accountable, respectful, and regenerative. More and more, community-led projects are emerging. Initiatives where Native Hawaiians choose to explore their own lineage through their own lens, at their own pace. Because this isn't just about genetics, it's about consent. It's about sovereignty. It's about the right of a people to control the narrative of their own bloodline. In Hawaii, DNA isn't just data, it's sacred. And how we use it doesn't just matter, it defines whether science will divide or finally begin to heal. Real stories, real shifts. What Hawaiians are discovering. It's one thing to see DNA results on paper, it's another to feel them in your chest. Malia from Hilo believed her family was fully Native Hawaiian, unbroken, uncomplicated. But her DNA told a more intricate tale. Strands of Filipino, Japanese, and Portuguese ancestry woven into her bloodline. "It didn't take anything away," she said softly. "It added color." Jordan from Oahu discovered he shared a rare genetic marker with a Maori community in New Zealand. He'd always felt an unexplainable kinship with other Pacific Island cultures. Now, he had a molecular reason for that emotional pull, a confirmation of ties stretched across the sea. And then there's Tasha, raised in Maui, who learned her maternal line traced back to West Africa through a Puerto Rican great-grandfather she'd never known. That revelation sent her diving into Caribbean history, helping her reclaim a part of her heritage once lost to silence and shame. These are not isolated surprises. They're part of a growing wave, real people across the state, uncovering long-buried chapters of their own stories. And while these discoveries sometimes bring shock or even discomfort, they more often bring something deeper: connection, healing, and clarity. These personal revelations show that science doesn't erase cultural identity, it enriches it. It allows people to see their legacy not just in language or legend, but in their very biology. And in doing so, it turns bloodlines into something both personal and powerful. Why it matters: healing, identity, and the future of Hawaii. Why does any of this matter? Why look to DNA in a state already rich with culture, traditions, and song? Because genetics isn't replacing tradition, it's adding depth. It's helping people in Hawaii see themselves more clearly. It's offering adoptees a sense of place, mending fractured family lines, and giving voice to those who once wondered if they were Hawaiian enough. In classrooms, students are pairing genetic discovery with hula, mele, and olelo Hawaii, learning that heritage can be both a science and a song. In community centers, kupuna and keiki are gathering to compare stories and strands, finding new meaning in what memory and molecules share. Even in politics, these revelations are starting to shift conversations about native rights, land, and belonging. Because identity isn't just personal, it's collective. It shapes policy. It guides who gets seen, who gets heard, and who gets to lead. Understanding where you come from isn't just a fact, it's a force. One that can heal, reconnect, and reimagine what it means to belong. And for Hawaii, a state shaped by voyaging, migration, and memory, that knowledge isn't just power, it's a compass. Language in the genes, what DNA says about Hawaiian speech. Language is more than communication. It's a vessel of memory, of ritual, of identity passed from one generation's tongue to the next. For Native Hawaiians, Olelo Hawaii is not just a language, it is the heartbeat of a people, echoing across land, sea, and soul. But what if the roots of that language are also etched into our DNA? Linguists have long known that Hawaiian belongs to the vast Austronesian language family, a linguistic web stretching from Taiwan and the Philippines to Madagascar and Aotearoa. For years, this was a map drawn through sounds and syntax. Now, genetic science is tracing the same path through chromosomes and mitochondrial markers. Recent studies show genetic connections between Polynesian populations and Southeast Asia, supporting what linguists have long suspected. Mitochondrial and Y-DNA patterns mirror ancient roots of migration, roots that carried not just bodies, but words that changed, adapted, and rooted themselves in island soil. Even certain phonetic evolutions, the softening of consonants, the rhythm of vowels, line up with patterns of genetic divergence. In this way, language and lineage form two strands of the same braid, each confirming the other. The word aloha in Hawaiian and aroha in Maori aren't just similar by chance. They are linguistic sisters, born from the same ancestral breath. It proves that to speak Hawaiian is to speak one of the oldest, most resilient, and farthest-reaching languages in human history, one whose roots are written not only in chants and chants, but in chromosomes, royal bloodlines, and genetic legacy. Hawaii once had kings and queens, ali'i chiefs, who ruled with deep connection to land, people, and tradition. Their stories are etched into statues, songs, and sacred chants, echoing across generations. But now, science is beginning to explore those legacies through a new lens, the literal bloodlines of Hawaii's royal past. Some descendants of royal families have voluntarily participated in genetic studies, not to prove status, but to better understand how royal genealogies align with broader migration patterns and historical timelines. Early results suggest that ali'i lines may have preserved certain Polynesian genetic markers at higher frequencies, particularly those linked to ancestral regions like Tahiti, Samoa, and the Marquesas. This isn't about privilege, it's about continuity. Many who carry ali'i heritage see it as a kuleana, a responsibility to protect Hawaiian culture. Now, DNA offers one more way to honor that role, to bridge past and present with both reverence and research. It also helps eliminate long-standing myths. For example, some scholars once questioned whether inter-island voyages described in oral traditions actually occurred. But genetic data confirms that royal families often intermarried across island chains, tightening political alliances, deepening cultural exchange, and increasing genetic diversity in the process. The result is profound, a renewed respect for the historical record, and a deeper sense of pride for those who carry that legacy not just in name, but in their very veins. Climate, isolation, and adaptation, how Hawaiians evolved. One of the most fascinating revelations from Hawaiian DNA research isn't just about where people came from, it's about how they changed once they arrived. The extreme isolation of the Hawaiian Islands created evolutionary pressure points that shaped the human body over centuries. Native Hawaiians adapted to their environment in remarkable ways. Stronger salt retention to manage hydration in a humid climate, metabolic changes better suited for starch and seafood-rich island diets, and potential resistance markers to specific regional infections. These adaptations weren't random, they were survival, and today, their legacy lives on in the modern health profiles of Native Hawaiian communities. Researchers are examining how these inherited traits may help explain higher incidences of conditions like diabetes, heart disease, and hypertension, not simply as outcomes of modern lifestyles, but as echoes of ancestral biology meeting new environments. That insight is changing medicine. Local clinics and health researchers are beginning to apply genetic ancestry data to craft more culturally and biologically relevant healthcare strategies. In this way, DNA becomes more than a window to the past. It becomes a roadmap for health, resilience, and survival, a science not just of where you come from, but how you move forward. If stories like this make you see your own ancestry in a new light, subscribe and tap that bell icon. We're traveling from coastlines to islands, deserts to mountains, one DNA revelation at a time. Share this with someone from Hawaii or anyone exploring their roots. The next surprise might be in their genes. And in the comments, tell us, what's one thing your ancestry taught you that history books didn't?